Welcome to Uncorked Canvas Online. Today I'm going to teach you a couple different ways to paint fluffy clouds. Now you'll see these same kind of clouds and style through a few of our paintings, and I think that you'll have a lot of fun practicing these without the pressure of putting them on a real painting. Or just kind of watch the video and get some good ideas for something you want to try next time you come to an event. So what I've got here is a very simple, just blue background. I'm going for big fluffy clouds to begin with, so I'll start with a larger brush. Those cumulus tall clouds, very happy clouds, they don't always have to look the same, and they don't have to always follow the same pattern. So I'll show you just some ways to kind of make them a little bit more random so they don't look too formulaic, and ways that you can just give them a lot of texture without a lot of work. So I've got my large brush here. We're going to start out with this, get it wet first, and then just make sure it's not dripping wet. We just want it to be a little bit damp. I'm going to go right into my white just so that I can do maybe a little sketching first. Now, if you were to draw with this, you would think, gosh, it's going to make a big brush stroke. How do I draw with this? And when we're trying to make a form, you can use the corner of it and kind of doodle with just the corner and get a very thin line. Or what I like to do is I like to use the whole flat of the brush to get a big shape in one brush stroke, one good sweep. But I use the top corner right here as the edge of my my cloud here. So what I have is I'm planning to bring a cloud coming in from the side, and so the top of it is the edge of that cloud. So what I like to do is follow kind of a direction that I want my cloud to come through, and say there's maybe a mountain behind it or something that I'm trying to frame in, keeping in mind that you want them to be taller in some areas and come shorter and get a little bit flatter as they go down. And a lot of cumulus clouds, if you want to even get it into your sketch, are flat towards the bottom, and at the edges they flatten and taper out. And you can see how much that is just a very basic shape. It doesn't always follow that formula, but that's a great place to start. So I've got my sketch already filled in. So now what I want to do is start to build up the density of the cloud, and that will vary with how bright the sky is in that cloud, how dense the cloud is. The brightest, thickest parts of the paint should be where there is the most light. The rest of the places is best to leave transparency, and transparency is where you see some of the background coming through, not just pure paint that you're painting on here. So you start on the top of the cloud, or the side of the cloud that gets the most light. Say the light is over on here and it's shining on this. You'd have the top of those rounded top parts be the thickest part of paint, the brightest color, the densest and brightest paint, because that's where the light is hitting. So in effect, to make it blend out without having to do a lot of blending, it's a really fun, easy technique. So I'm kind of loading the paint up, not trying to brush the paint away as soon as I get it on there. I'm trying to brush it on, put it on a little bit heavier, get the shape down that I want, get it kind of thick up top. And then what I'm doing on purpose is I'm loading all the paint towards the top, and I'm making my brush run out of paint so that when I come down with a very little pressure, I can start brushing out the base of these with some just back and forth brush strokes, even kind of bouncing the paint on there, so that at the bottom, with very little pressure, I can sweep out that paint, make it run out all on its own, and take advantage of the fact that the paint underneath is going to show through. So I can do the same kind of brush strokes, but I've taken advantage of the fact that my paint is running out of my brush, and just in and of itself, it can start to get that blend out effect. You'll see that more apparently in the painting, this new one at Paradise Meadow that we've got. You'll see at the base of those mountains there, the paint runs out, and you're actually seeing the mountain shine through. Those are the places that I didn't paint, or I had very little paint on my brush. And that creates that faded out effect without having to do a lot of complex blending. Now with this, you can still see through the top a lot. That's where a second coat really comes in. So you can build up those layers, and I've put this on thick. Now that I know where things are gonna go, as it dries, it'll be even easier, but I can start doing more dense building up of color, get those bright colors right on top, and really start building up more and more of that texture and difference in layering and building. Now another way that you'll see it is taking that same effect and building the clouds on top. And you can see I'm rotating my brush and I'm spinning it in the same curvature of the top of that cloud. I'm not just keeping it flat the whole time, I'm spinning it and rotating it. Like if you were to make a circle with this brush, you'd spin the whole brush to make that circle. That's what I'm kind of doing in a halfway brush mark. And I'm also, if you want them really, really fluffy, really textured, you can be bouncing your brush and creating a lot of way more random brush strokes. You can just do a quick sweep out at the bottom when you run out of paint, or you can kind of curve the bottom and create a shape down there as well. But as they layer and build on top of each other, and as you apply more and more layers, you'll see just this great depth to your sky as the clouds run into each other and you build up transparencies and build up just a little bit more complexity to the color. That also being said, if it's just getting a little bit too brushy down here while still wet, real quick, take your finger, smudge out in little circular motions the bottom, and you can see you can just soften it up. So here is with a flat brush, with a small or pointed brush or rounded brush. It doesn't even have to be this pointy, it can just be rounded. You can create completely different shapes to clouds. So this you can get way fluffier. You can push the paint to the edges in ways that are very different, and you can get much fluffier clouds, or at least smaller clouds that are fluffier. And you can make smaller circles this way as well. Now this does, like you can see, it pushes the paint all the way to the edges. So if you're looking for kind of a halo effect to these clouds, or you really want bright highlight to be really close to these edges, you can push the paint with that nose of that brush and get that fade out on the bottom much easier. And even then you can even have it fade more with your finger. Even add a little bit of water to your finger and you can fade that out and kind of do that scribbling and let it run out and get faded. So that's if you're doing it on a background where you want bright clouds on a dark background. Obviously you could do dark clouds on a light background, and I'll show you that with a little bit of a different blending technique on the right hand side. You can start with, of course, as dark a color as you want. Sometimes clouds are practically black either at nighttime, or if they've got stormy clouds, sometimes you need dark clouds. So what you can do is you can go with something really, really dark. This will be my shadow color though, but I'm going to start with some of that in some white to start at the top of the cloud so you guys can see it a little bit better. And I'll go with this darker color as I go down the cloud and add the shadows. So I'll do similar shapes to the other side. So you see, I'll start with the top and consider that the top of the cloud with nice fluffy bumps. Try to make every bump just a little bit different. I'm going to bring the color down a little bit farther, and how I'm going to create blending, because I don't want it to go to a lighter color down below on my light background. I want it to go to shadow down below. What I'm going to do is just kind of wipe off my brush a little bit. Take my darker color, you could just dark blue, or you could change the color completely, maybe make a little bit of a purpley color. And pun intended, the sky's the limit with how many colors the clouds come in. So you don't even have to keep them to the blues, you could try yellows. A lot of sunsets have yellows, a lot of skies have green in them if it's stormy weather. Experiment and have fun with it. But here's my shadow color. Now while it's wet, and only while it's wet will it blend this easily. I can start in the bottom of my cloud, whether it's got a flat bottom or a curvy bottom, and I'll start brushing upwards back towards my highlights. And even my brush strokes should vary and kind of have that bumpiness, just because clouds always have texture going throughout or different shapes going throughout. So I'll continue that kind of brush stroke effect in creating those little bumps inside of it. And then you can still brush out the bottom, and it'll depend on what you have on the background if that will look nice or not. Or you can really define the bottom of the cloud. And sometimes that's how they look. They really want a dark, solid backdrop behind them. And you can create the opposite. So this is now those dark clouds on a light background, or maybe yellow clouds on a gold sky. Anything that you want to do wet and wet. And you'll see that in one of our other paintings very clearly. You'll see we work into wet paint. So say we had a backdrop of blue right here that's still wet. You can take a lighter color, pure white, or a lighter blue. You can start on top of it, take into account that the canvas is wet, and you can brush down into it. You can plant your color first that you want it to blend into, and blend softly down into it while it's still wet. Now this is where getting your habits and the shapes of clouds down is very helpful, so that when it comes time to do all this blending, you're not trying to do so much guesswork with the shape of clouds. You can start having fun with blending colors and layering and building the clouds, and then you don't have to think so hard about, like, how do I hold my brush? The more practice, the more freedom you're gonna feel. And the more creative you can be when you don't have to think so hard about how you're holding your brush and how you're building that paint up. And then each of the clouds, if you were to go revisit and do a second layer, kind of the same effect, you'll get even more variety and be able to build up more intense color or more subtle layering. So that's a very, very basic way to do that. You can do it, of course, on completely different scale. You can do much smaller clouds, you just want to change the shape of or the size of your brush. You can do much simpler little short clouds where you just I like to kind of flatten my brush as it goes to the side. So I start it vertically, then I flatten as it goes out to the side, and then you can sweep out those clouds at the bottom and create a huge layered effect where you can create a bunch of these in the sky. You can see like these groupings where they just are little puffs of clouds through the sky, little bits of bumps and things, and you can layer and build a whole sky without needing to do these big cloud formations. So we just want to show you one of our favorite things about paintings a lot of the time is just these subtle little pieces that give so much life and art. They're difficult just on their own, but that makes them so much more rewarding when you practice them a few more times and start to feel a lot more free in creating them. So we hope this helped you, and just getting a good close-up view of what you would see in class will help you when you go in to design your own work. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you learned something new. Leave a comment in the comment section if you can think of something else you'd love to see us break down for you, or if you want to see this in a more detailed way or see us break down different kinds of clouds. We'd love to know what you would like to learn next. Thank you so much, and we can't wait to see you at an event or online at uncorkedcanvas.com.